I'm going to explain to you exactly how I was able to boost my credit score above 800. And if you're wondering why this is important, rates are at historic lows, creating some incredible opportunities for borrowing money and building wealth. And you're going to need to borrow money to get some of those sweet real estate deals. You think you might want to buy a home, refinance, or get a HELOC? Well, if you want to take advantage of these incredible opportunities, then you're going to have the best credit score possible. We're going to go over exactly what goes into a credit score, and we're going to break it down and make it as simple as possible for you to rapidly improve your credit score. Hey everybody, Jay here. Welcome to Gems, the channel that talks about personal finance, real estate, and how to make money. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of the gems that we're sharing with you. That's right, folks, we're sharing the wealth. So you might be wondering, why even have a credit score? Why is that even a thing? What's the point? Lenders are in the business of loaning money. Imagine my shock. No, but seriously, they make money when they loan money to you. But sometimes when they loan money, they don't get paid back. And that's what makes the business of lending money risky. And lenders want to minimize this risk. So they need a way to determine risk level. And that's where a credit score comes in. It's essentially a way for a lender to evaluate the risk of loaning money to you. If you have a high credit score, the lender can reasonably assume that there will be less risk in loaning you money. And if you have a low credit score, of course the lender is going to think it is a very risky move to loan you money. And if you're a risky borrower, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't get a loan. But lenders generally offset the risk by charging you more money to borrow the money. Meaning if you want the best deals, you got to have a really good credit score. There are some cases where a credit score can be so low that you find yourself unable to get a loan at all. You don't want to be that person. And right now your credit score is more important than ever because financial institutions are getting a little apprehensive about loaning money. Right now some borrowers are having a tough time making their monthly payments. Banks are doing something called tightening the lending standards. Essentially what this means is that they're making it harder for you to get a loan. So what is this magic credit score and where does it come from anyway? We really don't need to get too far into this, but just know there are three major credit bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. These bureaus, that's a weird word, bureau. These three institutions are constantly collecting information about you. And then that information is analyzed following specific rules to create your credit score. There are two types of credit scores that are most common. One is called a FICO score and one is called a Vantage score. For the rest of this video, we're going to be talking about building your FICO score. But don't worry, if you improve your FICO score, you're also going to improve your Vantage score. They're almost exactly the same thing. The ingredients that go into both scores are so closely aligned that you really don't have to spin your wheels trying to solve for one and also trying to solve for the other. Pretty much getting your FICO score up will automatically also raise your Vantage score. In fact, they're so closely aligned that even the scoring range is exactly the same. They both go from 300 on the low end all the way up to 850 on the high end. So now you might be wondering, Jay, do I need to have an 850 credit score? Well, certainly the higher your credit score, the more desirable you are to the lender. It's what they call a strong borrower. And if you're a strong borrower, you'll have more control over the conversation. Basically, that just means you can demand better rates and better terms on your loan. One thing you should know is that lenders tend to not rank everyone on a point-by-point basis. What I mean is that they lump borrowers into buckets. And essentially there's 5 major buckets. And as long as you're in the range of each of these buckets, the lender assumes the amount of risk based on one of these 5 scoring buckets, depending on where you fall within the range. So the lowest tier is 300 to 579. Not good. But don't beat yourself up too much if that's where you're at. Because the lower your credit score, the easier it is to raise it up quickly. In fact, sometimes you can move out of the lowest tier with just a couple of months of effort. The next range is 580 to 669. This is considered a fair credit score, and some lenders are willing to negotiate with borrowers who are in this range. Making a big home purchase would be a little bit more difficult, but definitely still possible. The next range, which is considered good, is 670 to 739. What really surprised me is that 67% of Americans have a good credit score or better. I don't know what I thought I was going to see, but it surprised me a little bit. If it's surprising to you too, let me know down in the comments. The very good range, which is 740 to 799, is where you really start to get excellent deals on your loans. In most cases in this range, you can get the lowest rate. But sometimes, lenders reserve the best rates for those in the ultra premium, super exclusive, 800 or better club. But you should know if you have a credit score of 800, it really doesn't get any better than that. If you came in with a perfect 850, you would get the exact same rate as somebody with an 800. You might give the lender a little bit of a wow factor because that's so rare. But other than that, as long as you're over 800, you're pretty much in that exclusive top tier. So let's get down to business. The very first thing you're going to want to do is pull down your credit report and check it for errors. Errors. That's right, you don't want any mistakes on your credit report. And believe it or not, this happens more frequently than you might imagine. So you can actually go to a website called annualcreditreport.com. From there, you're allowed to pull one free credit report every 12 months. Your credit report will have a bunch of information on it, such as personal information, which is your name, your address, your social security number, your birthday, etc., etc. You want to go over that and make sure it's all correct. You definitely don't want to be getting beat up for someone else's mistakes. If you do find an error on your credit report, the Fair Credit Reporting Act requires that you have the ability to fix this error. So for this, what you want to do is contact the Bureau. Remember Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion? Whichever one of these institutions provided the data, you're going to want to contact them and let them know about the mistake. Also, somebody reported the data to the credit agency in the first place. So for example, if the mistake is regarding a Visa card that you had, also contact Visa to let them know that they made a mistake. By communicating with these two different parties and letting them know of the mistake, you should be able to get it corrected. Once you're sure that there are no mistakes on your credit report, the next thing you're going to want to do is start monitoring your credit on a regular basis. This is so important. Now I know there's a bunch of services that will charge you monthly fees in order to allow you to monitor your credit report, but I really don't think you need any of that. You should download an app called Credit Karma. I use it all the time. No, I'm not sponsored or anything like that. It's actually just an app that I use and it works great. It does just take an estimate of your credit, but I find that it's super accurate. I've checked Credit Karma just like an hour before I've actually had a credit report pulled, and it's so close it's usually within just a few points. And once you watch this video, you'll know everything you need to do to improve your credit score. And Credit Karma has all the right data points to let you know you're hitting the right milestones along the way. Plus, it's just fun to watch your credit score go up. Now we need to talk about the exact ingredients that go into making your FICO score. And there are 5 major buckets. Now before we get any further, I should tell you that nobody knows exactly what goes into a credit score. The companies that produce these things have a secret algorithm. They do this because if they told you exactly what goes into the credit score, some people could game the system, and that would render the whole score pretty much useless. However, I've done a bunch of research and a lot of real-life experimenting with this. And I'm going to share with you everything you need to know to raise your credit score. So the first and most important bucket is payment history. Approximately 35% of your credit score is based on payment history. It's the largest and most important bucket when it comes to raising your credit score. And the good news here with this one is that it's pretty easy to figure out what you need to do. It's as simple as don't ever miss a payment. Always make at the very least the minimum payment. In fact, missing just one payment can drastically affect your credit score. And this includes home loans, car loans, personal loans, credit cards, basically any kind of credit that's been extended to you. You're not going to want to miss a payment. Now, if you have missed a payment, but otherwise have a very good credit history, sometimes you can call and negotiate and actually have that missed payment expunged from your record. And if you've already missed several payments, I think the best thing you could do is start right now. Commit to yourself that you will not miss any more payments. If you're in a situation where you owe all kinds of money and there's no way you can make all the payments, then it's time to really start breaking things apart and begin doing some emergency repairs for your financial situation. There's really 2 main things you can do, right? You could spend less or earn more, and you might need to do both. This includes reducing cost wherever possible, having a budget, tracking everything you spend. If you've already cut costs everywhere possible, and you still don't have enough to make at least the minimum payment on all your debts that are due, then you're gonna have to earn more money. But whatever you do, you gotta put yourself in a position to where you never miss a payment. That should be part of who you are. Just make that a thing. Take missing payments completely off of the table. Don't let yourself be okay with the idea of missing a payment at all. Don't just refuse to miss a payment, but also pay on time. Late payments count against you. And if you are late, pay as soon as possible. Because 30 days late is not as bad as 60 days late, which is not as bad as 90 days late. So if you're already late, the sooner you get that payment in, the better. By the way, this is what I'm talking about. Look at this. Credit Karma gives you incentive too. It tries to cheer you on to raise your credit score. I like this little widget that shows you how many months in a row you've had no late payments. Right now I have consistent payments for 140 months. That's almost 12 years. No late payments, no missed payments. And that's final. The next most important ingredient in your credit score pie, which is 30% of your credit score, is something called the amounts you owe. This is one that has several different types of tricky things going on and secret algorithms and the rest of it. But one of the most important concepts in this bucket is something called credit utilization. What credit utilization is how much of your total revolving credit are you currently using. And just real quick, if you don't know what revolving credit is, it's like a credit card. It's a type of credit where when you pay it off, you could spend it again. That's why it's called revolving. But how credit utilization works is actually pretty simple to calculate. Suppose you have 2 credit cards, each with a $500 limit. You would have $1,000 of revolving credit. Now suppose you went out and charged one card to the max, all $500. Hey, look at all these video games I just bought. Your credit utilization in this case would be 50% because you've used half your total credit, or half of $1,000. Don't max out all your cards, that's really bad for your credit score. Actually, they say you should never use more than 30% of your revolving credit at any time. I say don't use more than 10%. I've noticed with just 3% credit utilization, I take a little hit on my credit score. 3%, just 3%. It's like, oh, come on. But I need to tell you something really important right here. Always, always, always pay your cards down to 0. I love the idea of using a credit card. I do not love the idea of having credit card debt. Credit card debt is the worst thing you could have. So use it and pay it off every month. You want to pay it before they give you that interest charge, because credit card interest charges are really high. It's some of the worst interest rates that you could ever pay. Don't do that. Never pay for those. Now, if you're somebody out there thinking, well, that's great, but I already have a bunch of credit card debt, you need to pay that down. And in all seriousness, it's super important that you do that. So here's what you do. I'm going to explain this really fast. Start with whatever debt, and it's probably a credit card, has the highest rate that you're paying every month. Not the total amount of debt that's the largest, just the most expensive debt. Make the minimum payments on everything else, just enough to get by, and put everything you've got into the most expensive debt. So what I'm saying is if you have $1,000 on one card and you're paying 12%, and you have $100 on another card and you're paying 20%, pay down that 20% card first, and then move on to the next one and the next one and the next one. If you're one of those people that just pays the minimum on a credit card, in the industry, they actually call you a revolving door. Did you know that? They love those revolving door customers. You're making the credit card companies rich. Don't do that. Use credit cards wisely. If you use them wisely, they're very, very helpful, especially because you have a digital paper trail and you can track all of your expenses. Look for an app called Mint. It's super helpful. I am not sponsored by Mint. I just use it myself, so I'm sharing the information. It'll really take the blindfold off your financial situation. It's great to see what money's coming in and where it's going. And it also gives you a roll-up of your net worth, which if you're trying to build wealth, it's super fun to track your net worth over time. The next component of your credit score is something called length of credit history. And this bucket is about 15% of your credit score. This one's actually kind of straightforward. What they do here is they look at all the lines of credit that have been extended to you, and then they calculate the average age of all of that credit. So for example, if you only had 2 lines of credit, let's say one was a home loan, and you've had that for 8 years, and then another was a credit card that you've had for 4 years. That's a total of 12 years, but there's 2 lines of credit, so your average credit history is 6 years. So I have one really cool tip for you to maintain your length of credit history. Never close a credit card. I have cards that I don't really use, but I don't close them. In fact, I just use them to make one small charge maybe once a year, just enough to keep them open and make sure they aren't automatically closed.
What about opening a new credit card?
It's kind of a wash because you do take a little hit on your age of credit history for opening a new credit card, but you extend your total amount of credit, which improves your credit utilization. But if you pay your cards down to 0 every month, then your credit utilization is already as good as it's gonna be, so you might actually take a little bit of a hit, but it seems like it builds up really fast. So what is considered a good average age for your credit? Less than 2 years is pretty much the worst, then 2 to 4 years is a little better, 5 to 6 years, somewhere in the middle, 7 to 8 years is where your average credit age is starting to look really good, then 9 plus is just as good as it gets. Moving on to the next ingredient in your credit score, there's something called new credit, and this one affects about 10% of your FICO score. I think the basic idea behind this one is that if somebody's constantly getting new credit and new loans, that might indicate some kind of a risk. Like, what exactly is going on? Are you just not very good with money and so you constantly have to borrow money? And this is the one where running your credit score gives you a little bit of a hit. So for example, if I apply for a home loan, the lender's going to do something called a hard credit pull. And this is where they report to the financial bureaus that you, the borrower, are thinking about getting a loan, and they pull your credit score. Now the good news here is that they understand that if you're applying for a home loan, you might want to shop around. So if you get a hard credit check and a couple more times over the next 24 hours, they're really only going to give your credit a hit for one pull. Because it's really not you trying to get multiple different loans, it's just you shopping around for the best deal. But if you get a home loan and then a month later you get a new credit card and then a month later you get a new car and each of these have new loans, that's where things are really going to start to add up and you're going to start taking a hit to your credit score. The less hard credit checks on your report, the better. You should try to keep it to no more than about 3 or 4 hard credit checks on your report at any time. But each credit check tends to have less of an impact as it gets older. And eventually, after about 2 years or so, a credit check will just fall off your report altogether. Now, if you're worried about having too many credit checks, one thing you can do that's very helpful is to put a freeze on your credit. A credit freeze is also a great security trick because it prevents anyone else from signing up for credit in your name. The thing I like about this is that it's now free to freeze or unfreeze your credit. It used to cost money. If you're interested in doing this, you'll have to do it 3 times. Visit the website for each of the 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and from there you can figure out how to freeze your credit. And then if you ever need your credit pulled, it's just as easy to go to each of these websites and unfreeze your credit. So the 5th and very last bucket is something called types of credit, and this accounts for about 10% of your FICO score. Now what's going on here is they're trying to determine your experience with credit. And they do this by looking at your own personal assortment of credit. See, there are different types of credit: revolving credit, like credit cards, fixed loans, like home loans. And I think the idea here is that the more experience you have of being responsible with different types of credit, the less risky of a borrower you are. So lenders just see it as a good thing if you've proven that you can handle different types of credit responsibly. Does this mean that you should go out and get every type of loan? Absolutely not. But it also means that there's a little bit of benefit as you pick up different types of loans along the way. Just make sure that any credit you're getting and you're applying for is something that you're going to use wisely and it's actually going to make you better off financially. Alright folks, let's just recap some of the highlights here. Definitely check your credit score for errors. Monitor your credit score all the time. I like to use Credit Karma and check mine at least once a week. Always make your payments on time and work toward getting yourself in a position to pay your credit cards down to 0 every month before that interest charge comes in. Never close a credit card. Don't do too many credit checks. But if you are shopping around for a loan, don't worry too much. And over time, as you acquire different types of credit, you're going to benefit. Follow these steps and in no time you'll be part of the exclusive 800 Club. At the very minimum, you're going to see your credit score start to increase over time. Definitely don't get discouraged. With a little bit of work, persistence, and effort, whatever your credit score is, you are definitely going to see it go up. And this is going to empower you to leverage those great rates to start building financial wealth and, most importantly, financial freedom. Alright, that's all I got for now. If you loved it, please do me a favor and hit that like button. If you only kinda liked it, still hit the like button.